You mentioned just now that you, where did I write this? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing. But Planetary Coalition, you like to do more of that, so how come? Why are you looking forward to
Well, I
doing
always
this?
loved international flavor in music. A lot of the my favorite guitar licks, even that I've applied to like screaming electric stuff, it's come from music that has an international flavor.
Okay.
Whether it's crossover, like Chick Corea's Spanish influenced tunes, or John McLaughlin playing with Indian musicians, or Ry Cooder with Cuban or African musicians. I'm just a fan of that music, and every time I hear it, I get inspired, and I've jammed along with this stuff, and I've come up. I came up with enough ideas, so I thought, this is something I really want to do, and it makes a statement too. It's because some people, I know because of how because of how some are familiar with me.
Sure.
A lot of people will hear this that won't go to the world music section at the record store, or if there's any record stores left, or Spotify or whatever. But this is a way to sort of get people interested in that music. So.
And obviously, challenging yourself and being diverse has always kind of guided you. So why? And this might sound like a silly question, but why has that always been so important to you?
I guess I can't not be.
Okay.
I just can't. I could. I could just, if I was just like a normal player that just does one thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe it would probably be a lot easier. I'd probably have a much easier time. I'd probably get more sleep, and my calendar wouldn't be so crazy. But it's just who I am. It reflects my listening taste, and I feel like if I limit myself, if I don't explore, all the styles of music that I connect with, then I'm not really being honest as an artist.
So it's about artistic expression. It's about delving into all facets of your creativity.
Yeah, it's whatever makes sense to me, and I'm inspired by. There's a few very unique figures in the music industry that do have that sort of are diverse in that way. And I mean, for a long time, there were when studio musicians were used a lot in. There's a great film called The Wrecking Crew about these LA studio musicians in the 60s and early 70s that would just play radically different types of music. And there are musicians that do that, but I can also look at a producer like Rick Rubin, who can go from producing Slayer to producing Public Enemy to producing Tom Petty to Johnny Cash to the Red Hot Chili Peppers to System of a Down. It doesn't matter, I mean, it's like if he likes it, of course, right? It's totally logical. It makes it. He likes it. Why would he not? And those are great records.
Right.
Right? So, I always thought, why, as an instrumentalist, why can't somebody have that approach? And then another one is John Zorn, who's primarily a saxophonist, but he has over 100 albums out.
Okay.
Some of them are radically different than others. Some fans of some of his work might hate some of his other work, and vice versa. Okay, so I'm talking about John Zorn. John Zorn, he has everything from, like, he's got recordings that he's done with, like, members of the Melvins and Dave Lombardo from Slayer, but also he's done recordings with Bill Frisell, great improvisational artist, and he has string quartet recordings where he doesn't even play.
Okay.
But it's his music. He has music where he plays bebop-influenced saxophone. He has albums of piano music. I mean, he's really eclectic. But I can see somebody like that, and that has, just sees nothing wrong with, being a fan of like, extreme metal, or Charlie Parker.
Right.
And that's kind of how I am. And sometimes people don't get it.
But I find it quite interesting, and maybe you've been asked this 100 million times, I don't know, but what made you go back to this maybe feels counterintuitive, but what made you come back to Testament? And
it wasn't planned.
Okay.
It was just something that felt right at the time.
Okay.
And it was just supposed to be a few shows. And I thought, this will be really interesting to explore this, especially because most of what I was doing at that time, was instrumental.
Right.
And not so much metal, And it just felt like a fun thing to do. And then that went well enough for us to do a record. And then we got put on tour with Heaven and Hell, Judas Priest, and Motorhead.
Right.
So now we're sort of really, it's a metamorphosis. It was, it was like a rebirth, and then we're on this other level. So okay, well, we would have talks every now and then. Do we want to keep doing this? And okay, it's going well, and then it's felt natural, and I'm also, I'm able to do. I'm not. It's not like the first time around,
right,
where I hadn't developed other sides by playing, so I felt a little more restricted. Now I feel like I've developed these other sides. I'm able to do them, and it just it seems to be working. I feel like I'm able to apply a lot of the other sides to the work I'm doing in testing.
Finally, then, can you give me kind of an example of how world music and jazz kind of seeps into what you do for Testament?
Sure. Well, like the timing. You have to develop a really strong sense of timing in world music and jazz. And I might take some ideas. I might take some scales from world music that I can apply. I can just kind of take the similar idea but with distorted guitar, and then adjust it, and then try to come up with a more of a metal sounding drum pattern.
Right.
That's and the same thing with jazz. I mean, playing jazz guitar, you really learn to see things differently. You see things more linear, like up and down the neck, not just across the neck. You become much more aware of certain shapes and systems and triads and not to get too technical, but seventh chords and extended chords and extended harmonies, and just being able to tap into that means, like, if I come up with a riff and it really sounds like a metal riff, I think having this other side, it enables me to try a lot of variations very quickly. I think, okay, well, what if I do a flat 5 triad in between the chords, or what if I take the a melodic minor mode and try to do that and do a harmony, what I mean? But I'm not trying to make it sound like jazz. I might just say, okay, here's a great riff. This is purely a metal riff, but and now it needs some single notes. So for the single notes, like I have just so many shapes in mind that I can try, and I think it's enabled me to come up with some more interesting stuff.
That's interesting, because I believe when you moved to New York, you actively pursued an education in jazz guitar as well. So is that kind of what you just mentioned, that musical theory was important to you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I don't know how much music theory you had before you started kind of playing in Testament in the early days, but
I knew the basics.
Okay.
And I studied with Joe Satriani. He was my teacher for a while. So, yeah, I mean, I knew theory to a point.
Okay.
Like I could take, you know, I could take it, like any song on the radio and tell you what mode it's in. Okay. I could change the mode, you know, to show you what the song would sound like in a different mode. I could take a Rush tune and tell you what all the time signatures are. So it's not like I didn't have a foundation, but, you know, to the point of like understanding, you know, deeper music, like understanding reharmonization and you know, outside playing, and, you know, I can show you a Pat Metheny lick now and describe it and say, okay, well now he's actually going outside the key, but he's resolving it, and the reason it works is because blah blah, you know, and here's the, you know what I mean? It's just it's understanding, you know, just a different level of music, and it took years of just you know, focusing on that to be able to you know, to get to a level where I was more comfortable.
Very last question then. Is there an area in guitar playing that you would still like to explore?
Oh yeah,
that you haven't?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm doing it all the time, I think, but yeah, I really, well, like blues is a foundation of everything I do. Like the first music I learned, you know, was based on the blues. You know, all the '50s rock and the first Beatles tunes I learned, and the first Zeppelin tunes, and it was all connected to the blues. And even the, you know, a lot of it, you know, jazz is built upon the blues. There's, you know, it's a form found within the jazz genre, and even some world music. There's some African artists where you can, yeah, really hear the blues.
Well, you mentioned Ry Cooder, and he made a record.
Right, now that's a real blues player that actually was able to incorporate that. And he did a record with Ali Farka Touré, and you can hear the blues there. So I'm trying to find a way to explore blues, but do it in my way, and do it in a way that's interesting. So that, I think that's kind of, you know, on the horizons at some point.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.